1:14 in San Francisco. This is Lamar Sherlock, KYA News, brought to you by the makers of Light Olympia, the beer from Tumwater, Washington. A Soviet astrophysicist says any attempted landing on the planet Venus will be pushed hundreds of miles off target because of constant winds roaring with 6 times the force of a hurricane. Next, Viet Cong battalion wiped out, and San Francisco State professor arrested on charges of contributing to the delinquency of minors.
Why brew a best-selling beer like Olympia in a little town like Tumwater, Washington? Because it's the water of Tumwater that makes Olympia a really good beer. Next time, ask for Oli, the small town beer that made good.
Olympia Brewing Company, Tumwater, Washington. South Vietnamese troops and their American advisors have virtually wiped out a Viet Cong battalion in a graveyard just below the demilitarized zone. The battle was one of 3 today in which 341 communists were killed. KY time 1:16. Japanese Premier Sato, visiting in Saigon, says he's convinced South Vietnam's leaders are dedicated to finding peace. A vanguard of some 2,500 anti-war marchers has reached the parking lot of the Pentagon, shouting demands for America to get out of Vietnam. Heavily reinforced security guards are stationed at the doors to repel any attempt to storm the building. No serious disorders as yet. The anti-war, anti-draft protesters prefaced their march from the Pentagon with a peaceful rally at the Lincoln Memorial. In one minor incident, 3 members of the American Nazi Party were hustled off by police when they knocked down a British Labour Party speaker. The throng of demonstrators includes college students, hippies, middle-aged pacifists, businessmen, and what a high U.S. official calls a very, very small minority of radical leftists. Congressman Don Clausen of California says anti-war demonstrations are hurting our chances to win the war quickly.
After reading recent reports from Vietnam, including captured Viet Cong and North Vietnamese documents, I find a very strong indication that leaders in Hanoi may be misreading the anti-war demonstrations here in America. These indications reveal that the communists may be holding out just a little while longer in negotiating a settlement of the war, in the hope that mounting sentiment and public opinion in America may force a U.S. withdrawal from Vietnam. This, of course, would negate the need for negotiations and represent a tremendous victory for international communism.
KYA News asked the chairman of the Assembly Committee on Criminal Procedures, Craig Biddle, if any new laws were needed to handle protest marches more effectively.
Possibly establishing within the Peace Officer Standings and Training Commission some type of course that will be mandated to all law enforcement agencies in the human relations, which is what we're talking about here. Possibly a course dealing primarily with working out the details and the guidelines and the rules for demonstrations ahead of time. And more details like this we can give to law enforcement prior to any demonstrations to, again, avoid any, not unlawful, but you'd say more the unlawful or just any use of force by law enforcement.
A congressman from Tennessee, Don Kuykendall, wants Dr. James Goddard, Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, to resign because of his, Goddard's, approval of marijuana.
I believe Congress should demand the immediate resignation of Dr. Goddard. Such a statement by the head of an important federal department is completely irresponsible and, in my opinion, makes Dr. Goddard unfit to head a division which has control over the food and drug laws of the nation. For a man in such a position to encourage the belief that there is little harm in using marijuana, which is illegal, in the face of all the evidence of the crime and misery caused by users of this drug, is absolutely inexcusable. If this is Dr. Goddard's attitude toward his own college-age children, I suppose there's little that can be done about it. But he certainly should be prevented from using the prestige of a high federal office to encourage delinquency and the smoking of marijuana by youngsters outside his own family.
An expert on drugs says hundreds of women have sought criminal abortions because they believe their babies would be deformed by the use of LSD. Dr. David Smith, director of San Francisco's Drug and Narcotics Abuse Center, told an audience in Southern California the mother's fears may be unfounded. Smith blamed a recent magazine article which used selected statistics for creating the panic among the expectant mothers. He said to date, no research has conclusively proven that LSD will cause deformity deformities in unborn children. However, he warned against the use of the hallucinogenic drug by pregnant women because its effect on the reproductive system remained a mystery. A college professor at San Francisco State College, Dr. Leonard Wolf, under arrest today on charges he contributed to the delinquency of minors. He was arrested in connection with a nude ballet staged at a theater in the Haight-Ashbury. And 22-year-old Harry Holubowski, the subject of a wide police search after being reported missing, has shown up at Stanford University, where he's a student. He said he didn't know police were looking for him. And residents in the rugged brush and timberland of Southern California today faced cleanup work following a week-long series of fires which scorched over 50,000 acres.
KYA Sports.
These final football scores just in. Syracuse has beat the California Bears 20-14. Indiana over Michigan 27-20. Yale 21. Columbia 7 at the half. Oregon State is leading Purdue 10-7. And U.S. golfers have widened their lead in Ryder Cup competition with the British. Americans Billy Casper and Gay Brewer defeated Britain's Peter Ellis and Christy O'Connor 3-2. Gardner Dickinson and Doug Sanders beat England's Brian Huggett and George Will by the same margin. Weather for the Bay Area, variable cloudiness today and tonight, becoming fair tomorrow. Cooler today, the high is 62 to 72. It's 59 in Oakland. San Rafael 63. In San Jose it's 64. That's KYA News, brought to you by the Olympia Brewing Company of Tumwater, Washington.